All right, let's just jump right in. We use words all day, every day to make sense of the world. But what if I told you that there's a single word, just one adjective, that can actually break the very logic it's built on?
Yeah, I know. It sounds impossible, right? How can one word do that? Well, today we're going to unpack this incredible linguistic puzzle. It starts out feeling like a simple, kind of fun word game, but trust me, it spirals very quickly into a really deep, mind-bending contradiction, one that actually pushes up against the very limits of language.
Okay, so first things first, we've got to look at our language in a slightly, a different way. We're going to focus on this really interesting property that some words have where they actually refer back to themselves.
It's actually kind of a playful idea. Some adjectives are, self-descriptive. They literally are the thing they mean. It's this weird little bit of self-reference that's just been hiding in plain sight in our vocabulary the whole time. Okay, check this out. Perfect example. The word short is a short word, right? It has the exact property it's describing. It's this neat little circle of meaning. Super straightforward so far.
And here's another one. The word English is, an English word. Or think about polysyllabic. That word is polysyllabic. Once you start thinking about it, you start seeing these kinds of words all over the place.
All right, so now that we've got the basic idea, let's get a little more organized. We're going to set up some rules for this game. We can basically sort every single adjective out there into one of two buckets. No exceptions. And here they are. On one side, you have autological words. Those are the ones that describe themselves, like short. On the other side, you've got heterological words, the ones that don't describe themselves, like long. The key rule here is that every adjective has to fit into one of these two boxes. It's one or the other, no middle ground. So let's nail this down. Autological. That's a word that describes itself. We used the example polysyllabic before. It has many syllables, so boom, it's autological. It follows its own rule.
And then you've got heterological. This is for any adjective that doesn't describe itself. Think about monosyllabic. That word has 5 syllables, so it is definitely not monosyllabic. That makes it heterological. And honestly, most adjectives fall into this second group.
Okay, so our system seems pretty solid, doesn't it? Every single adjective is either autological or heterological. The rules are crystal clear. The categories are nice and neat. But there's a problem. There is one word, just one little adjective, that is about to come along and make this whole logical structure just completely fall apart.
And this is the whole point of this explainer. What about the word heterological itself? Which category does it belong in? Let's try to put it in one of our two boxes. And this, right here, is where things start to get really weird.
Okay, let's walk through this logical trap together. First, let's just assume the word heterological is, heterological. What does that mean? By our own definition, it means it's a word that does not describe itself. But wait, we just used it to describe itself, so that can't be right. It must be autological then. But that's a flat-out contradiction. Okay, let's try it the other way. Let's assume heterological is autological. Well, that means it's a word that does describe itself. And what property would it be describing? The property of being heterological. Another contradiction. We are completely and totally trapped in a loop.
So yeah, the problem is unavoidable. The word heterological simply cannot be put into either category. The second you try, the definition just collapses in on itself and creates this impossible endless loop. Our nice, neat, logical system is totally broken.
Now you might be sitting there thinking, okay, that's a clever little word game, a fun trick. But this paradox is actually pointing to something way, way deeper. It's a fundamental problem that pops up in logic and language whenever they try to talk about themselves.
And this isn't just some weird quirk of the English language. This exact kind of self-referential knot shows up in other places, like the super rigid and precise world of mathematics. That tells you this isn't just a game. It's a core challenge for any system of logic. In fact, this paradox has a very famous cousin called Russell's paradox. Instead of words, it deals with mathematical sets. It asks this question: does the set of all sets that don't contain themselves contain itself? Think about it. If it does, then it shouldn't. And if it doesn't, then it should. Sound familiar? It is the exact same logical nightmare, just with sets instead of adjectives. And let me tell you, when this was discovered about a century ago, it seriously shook the entire foundation of mathematics.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, what the Grelling-Nelson Paradox really shows us is that there's a fundamental limit to how we make sense of the world.
It turns out that our most powerful tools for understanding everything, language and logic, can actually break down when you try to turn them back onto themselves.
And that really leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought, doesn't it? If our own language, the very tool we use to think, contains ideas that completely defy classification and break logic, well, what other truths might be out there that are just fundamentally beyond our ability to even define? It's amazing, really. The Grelling-Nelson Paradox shows us that sometimes the biggest, most profound questions can come from the absolute simplest of words.